This is TWiT.
Will Spotify ruin... I have started reading Matt Stoller's big blog because he talks about monopoly. I don't know if it's good or not, but I enjoy reading it. I really enjoy reading it. His newest piece contains an interesting thesis that I wanted to run by you, particularly you, Jeff.
Uh-oh.
Will Spotify ruin podcasting? And what he's likening podcasting to is the golden days of the internet, 2000 to 2006.
Blogs.
The
Blog
blogs.
rolls. RSS.
If you built a highly trafficked web property, you could finance yourself by selling advertising. It was a three-tiered system. Production, distribution, and advertising operated in vertically separated layers. By the way, this is very similar to the podcast market today.
Sounds very
There
familiar.
were some industry players like the New York Times, which both distributed and sold its own ads, but no one had dominant power in any one layer. However, along come Google and Facebook. And what happened, why the open web and publishing began dying, what happened was their advertising companies, they're middlemen in the flow of information. Google gets 80% of its revenue from ads. For Facebook, 98%. And what they did from 2004 to 2014 was, this is the question for you, if this is an accurate description of this, because I believe you were there, was to redirect the flow of ad money from publishers to themselves. His thesis is, by acquiring gatekeeping power and distribution, Google is a gatekeeper in search, online video, and maps. Facebook a gatekeeper in social networking. So this is the thesis. To get to users, you got to go through Google and Facebook. And what happened was advertisers started to realize, well, if I want those valuable New York Times readers, I could buy an ad in the New York Times, but wouldn't it be easier just to buy the search results from Google at a lower cost and still get the same views, same eyeballs? The money flows, instead of flowing to the New York Times, flows to Google. In fact, that's why the New York Times no longer relies on ad revenue. They've really worked hard. Yeah, they've really worked hard to beef up revenue through subscriptions. And they're doing a pretty good job of it, but that's not a viable playbook for a lot of journalism and publishing. When most users going through either Google properties or Facebook properties, corporations could decommodify the ad value of a publisher ad slot. No need to advertise in the Times. Just buy it on Google. So, first of all, does that... I mean, that sounds like a simplification, but is that roughly...
It's a radical simplification on a few levels. One is that publishers could have had their own first-party data. They don't. They treat people as a mass, as I say often. And Google and Facebook have data about users. That data is now useful. It's that data that commodifies the publisher's environment. Doesn't matter anymore. Data about the user and intent is far more valuable than the proxy that was environment. In other words,
I no longer need
in a
to.
boot magazine.
Not only do I not need to buy an ad on New York Times to get a New York Times reader, I don't even care if it's a New York Times reader. I want highly educated, income over $150,000.
No, I want somebody who's looking at these boots.
Even more granular. I want somebody who's in the market to buy boots tomorrow. Yeah.
And I know what boots, and I want them, and I want to get them at the best price in a competitive
publishers
marketplace.
Didn't stand a chance in that case.
Publishers had no chance because they didn't have first-party data. They had no discipline of doing that. They didn't build products that gathered.
But it wasn't that where mistakes were made. They couldn't have done that, could they?
No, they could have. They could have. No, they could. They could have built product. I mean, New York Times Food knows things about you in food that they can sell directly with food because they have targeted data about you rather than. The problem was. We relied on, I have my students always repeat this. Students, what's the myth of mass media? And then we repeat it. The myth of mass media is that all readers see all ads, so we charge all advertisers for all readers. I'll say it again, students.
Okay.
All readers see all ads, so we charge all advertisers for all readers.
This is a knife
and
to
so
my
that
heart.
meant, this is class. So that, listen closely, it'll be on the final.
Okay.
So that meant that it, that's why you had a bridge column in a newspaper and a food section in a newspaper and the golf section in a newspaper and all that stuff because you wanted every reader because you charged every reader to every advertiser. Online came along and not Google, not Facebook, online killed that. right?
Is it
all
enough?
You want to pay for is the
Is
ad
it enough for us, instead of trying to build a podcast network that gets everybody, to say we're going to try for a narrow slice? Is that enough targeting?
Yes.
It depends on how narrow your slice or the quality
Ours
of
is
your
pretty
narrow slice.
and it's pretty high quality, I think.
And it
Yours
depends
is
on
even
the
more narrow,
advertisers.
Stacey, because
Right.
you're only
So that's-
IoT users.
Right. And my advertisers love that. I
Yeah.
may only
Yes.
get this is a gross exaggeration, but my advertising may only get 20 clicks, right? And I charge a lot for it. But in the 20 are people who actually, 5 of them will buy the product
They're buying
at a
it.
huge amount.
Ultimately,
Right.
from an advertiser's point of view, it's
Right.
all about return on investment. If I spend $1 and I make $2, then
Winning.
it's a good thing.
Right. So you make targeted products. You're not mass media, either of you.
Oh, thank
Right.
But
God.
the New York Times, is an exception to all rules. You're the Cleveland Plain dealer.
That's a
You're
better
making a mass product
example.
in a
Yeah.
small market
Yeah.
where you have no limit of
And
competition. You're not
no one
really
cares
local.
about
All right. So good. All right. That's good. Valuable information. And let's move on to the Spotify challenge and see what you think of this. Spotify, which has been on a tear acquiring podcast networks. They bought Gimlet for $230 million. They just, this is this news story that triggered this column. They just bought The Ringer, which is Bill Simmons' smaller network, 30 podcasts, but it's all sports, although there's some society stuff. He does a movie podcast. You watch a movie with him and stuff. The CEO of Spotify, Daniel Ek, said, we've bought the next ESPN. Like, this is going to be as valuable as ESPN. We don't know how much they spent. Figure it's probably $100 million or more
At least.
for a company with 30 podcasts, 90 employees, and revenue of about $18 million a year. Spotify is rolling up the internet audio market, says this column, and they're willing to spend $500 million to do it. Over the last 6 years, they bought 15 companies, all of which are about data analytics, music and audio production, audio ads, licensing, podcasting networks. And his contention is that, right now podcasting is based on RSS. It's a free and open platform. You make an RSS feed, you're a podcast.
Thank you, Dave Weiner.
Yes, thank you, Dave Weiner. What Spotify wants to do is eliminate that. In fact, one could argue they're not even doing podcasts. They're doing any more than Netflix is doing podcasts. They're doing
This is like blogs.
a hub.
This is what happened to blogs.
right. They're doing they aggregated into larger platforms like Medium. So Spotify, by the way, he said, Spotify, no other company has Spotify's scale and audience around the globe. And this is Daniel Ek again, 78 markets where we do business. No other company has the two-sided marketplace we've built at Spotify that benefits both artists and creators along with consumers. Nobody else has both. Anyway, he goes on to make the pitch. What they really want to do is privatize open standards, take over the already large public commons. And here's the pressure point they have. They can go to advertisers and say, we know more because we're like Google and Facebook. We are the gatekeeper. We know everything about the audience because they have to listen.
RSS was open.
RSS, we don't know anything, but Spotify, Matt Stoller says.
Do you know what proportion of the revenue of Spotify is ad versus sub?
I'm sure I could find that. I think they've talked about that a little bit. They have a free ad-supported version and they have a subscriber version. But by the way,
what's their real strategy?
There's no ads in podcasts in the subscriber paid version. I think those podcasts still have ads in them, right? So they're double dipping. So I think the Spotify challenge is they could. Their goal probably is to put RSS style podcasting out of business, and they feel like the pressure that they can exert is we can give the advertisers a better value proposition because we know everything about the listener.
Well, we can verify. Start with this.
We can verify that they listened. Right now, this is hard for us because people say, "Well, did they hear the ad?" I don't know.
Oh,
right.
Oh, revenue at Spotify is 1.86 billion euros. That's total revenue. That's up 24%. Ad-supported revenue is 217 million of those euros.
Oh, so a big portion of it is subscriber, more than 80%.
Yes, I showed 90%.
90%, yeah.
So their goal isn't the advertising data. Their goal is to be Hulu come Netflix.
No, I disagree because they have the Netflix problem. Remember, the movie companies started pulling out their A-list quality content and Spotify's going to have that problems. They live and die by the record industry. The record
That's why
industry
they bought it.
could kill them.
That's why they're buying stuff.
They want to be they want to be the place to go for not music, but for audio. Period.
Right.
And they can own podcasting in a way that they can't own the record industry. So I think it's a defensive move, just as Netflix started making original content for the same reason. They have to do that to protect themselves against the music industry.
They said in their earnings, which they did earnings last week. Last week. Sorry, I don't know what day it is. They did say that podcasts are having a positive impact on the conversion rate of free to paid users.
Yeah. So what Stoller suggests is the Clayton Act. It was passed in 1913
Clayton antitrust?
To stop monopolies through mergers, even when such monopolies are in incipiency. He says the courts could invoke, or the FTC could invoke the Clayton Act to block the Ringer merger.
Way too soon. Their market share is tiny.
It'll never happen.
They'll never win.
Well, they
Plus,
can do it.
Players.
The Clayton Act says even if it's an incipient market.
Yeah.
But you're right. It'll never happen.
You got too many other players. And you have players who, has Amazon blown this? Has Audible blown this?
Well,
Audible
more to the
could do the
point,
same thing.
and there were comments on Hacker News about this article that there are plenty of podcasts. I'll include myself, Marco Arment, who makes a podcast client, who are never going to abandon RSS. We're not going to become a Spotify exclusive.
Right.
Plus, there's Apple as a major
unless
force
they
out
offer you $100 million, right, Leo?
More to the point, unless advertisers...
250, Stacey.
No. It could be worse than that. If advertisers don't buy ads because they say, well, I'm not going to buy your ads. I have no idea whether those ads are working.
That's the risk.
That's your risk.
Can I ask a devil's advocate question about that?
Well, since this is going to be your company as soon as you metastasize, metabolize, whatever it is you're doing.
Why don't we try to know as much about our viewers as Spotify does?
Because they will freak the
I don't want to know that.
That's a segue to asking for the damned survey.
Is it?
Well, it could be. It is a segue to the survey.
But the survey's not nearly as good because the survey is voluntary. It's it's a selected group.
Are people abandoning Spotify in droves because Spotify knows stuff about them?
No, but here's the thing.
Would they really abandon us because we know that we know some things about them?
That's the test that people like Bill Simmons and Ringer are going to try and say, well, what happens if we go Spotify exclusive? Do we lose audience? My suggestion is they will, because there's too many other shows.
Right.
And nobody wants to be forced which client they use. And it's in our interest, and this is why, Carson, we won't do that. It's in our interest to be everywhere people want to listen to us. I want to be on Amazon Echo. Yes. I want to be on YouTube. I don't want to tell you.
I'm not saying we should be exclusive.
We'd have to be if we wanted to collect that information. We'd have to say, and you can only listen to TWiT on the TWiT app. That would have to be the choice, because otherwise we can't collect that information.
Podcasters could have come together years and years ago and come up with a standard, but just like bloggers, just like newspapers too, over the years, we were all independent-minded and didn't want to do that and didn't want to lose the openness of it, and so we never had that data. So one who can't come up with that data, but it's going to be very expensive for Spotify to get that data across a wide, podcasts are still a long tail, God bless them. And there's tons of stuff out there they're not going to buy, and the people are going to listen to by other mechanisms, and they're not going to have that data.
Yeah.
And advertising is a smaller part. So that's why I'm asking whether this is more of a Netflix play than an ad play.
I don't know. I don't know what Spotify's plan is. I think that there's a virtue in this in a variety of different places, and they don't really have to make that decision. They could benefit either way. But
I just want to.
Does it hurt us?
I don't even.
Is all I care about. Yeah, I don't. Well, I don't want to spy on listeners either. Obviously,
I do. I want to know what I want to know. I want to know what our listeners want from us, and I want to be able to tell our advertisers what our listeners.
So take the survey. TWiT.tv, TWiT.2.
That's fair.
TWiT.2/survey20. Are we still doing that thing?
We are.
Okay.
We are.
That wonderful thing.
By the way, I hate
please help us.
Easy.
Please, listeners, please help us beat Spotify.
I will go get like hammer and tongs battle over these things because I don't want to spy on our audience. I'm willing to do.
You're not spying. You're asking them to help you and tell you what they like.
So that's why I'm willing to do it. I don't want to do it too
Moral
often. I'll do it once a
panic.
year. I don't want to. Look. I want to make it a pleasant thing to listen to TWiT, not a e-commerce transaction.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make it family. You're listening because you like us. We like you. We're all in this together. Who cares if we have ads? I don't need to pay rent.
But at the same,
But our viewers want us to succeed. So if we can,
Thank you,
give them
viewers,
ways to
for
help us
going to
succeed, then-
twit.to/survey20 and
thank you.
take that.
Twit Army. Thank you.
I have some personal animus towards marketing of any kind, towards success, all of that stuff. That's just my own thing.
We know you don't. Really
Leo
want to be
2.0,
successful.
actually, is Leo like 50.
Communist.
Will
if
not
it's-
have that problem.
If this is family, let's look at it on a family scenario. You're having a party at the house for the family. You know certain family members
Do you
are
pass
coming.
the hat at your party?
No.
No, of course not.
What
You
is
don't.
passing the hat?
You don't say, hey, give me $5 for this party.
No, we don't
you
do that.
throw the party.
We don't do that, but we also throw the party to say, cousin so-and-so is coming, and cousin so-and-so likes to have this with their meal, so we'll get that.
Yes.
Because we surveyed
but you don't
to
then
find
go
out.
but you don't go to cousin and say, now give me $5.
No, we don't do that, but
you're poor,
we
you
do,
might.
we do
I ask
survey
people,
to say,
I ask
hey,
people
what do
to
you
bring a
like?
dish to the party.
Oh, yeah, covered dish. You could share. Yeah, it could be a potluck.
Bring-
Is TWiT a
bring some-
potluck or a restaurant? Or a Chautauqua?
Yo, we have to stop talking about food.
We're going to wrap this up. We're done. I have a change log?
I want to note that
Yes.
Karsten was so uncomfortable he had to retie the tie.
He did. He put it back on.
Yep, I actually.
Harvard
I
men
had to put
cannot
the-
walk around without
the tie
neckwear.
back on.
It's in the bylaws.
Actually, you know what I want?
Wait,
Wait.
did he-
You know what I want? You know what I want? I really want
Tell
right
me what
now?
you want, what you really, really want.
I want him to untie it and give us video on Karsten Cam of his method of tying.
It's
I want
just
I want
like tying a
Karsten tie
shoe.
lesson.
We'll make that a TWiT
It's
bit.
a bow. It's just like tying a shoe. You already
Here we
know
go.
how to
Here
do
we
it.
go. Okay.
Karsten Cam, now bow
You
tie.
gotta get up a little higher.
Okay.
A little higher. There you go, Karsten.
The little dog goes through the hole. It comes out of the hole. The rabbit bites the mouse's head off. And there you have it. It is a bow tie.
Yeah, I can't do that. I can't.
Yes, you can. Can you tie your shoes, Jeff?
Yes, I can.
It's the same thing.
You just have to do it for 6 months straight. I sucked at it for 6
And
months.
do it
straight.
backwards. You have to do it
Oh,
backwards.
didn't iron your shirt.
He never irons his shirt.